as an introduction to this thing called creative coding, we're going to be using JavaScript, which is a programming language which has been designed for developing content for web and web pages, etc., etc., and is absolutely ideal for creating animation, interaction, this sort of thing. So that's going to be the programming language that we're going to use. However, just to try and teach JavaScript in itself would be quite a challenge. It's very difficult for someone who comes from a creative background. So what these clever people here have done is created this thing called a library, which is effectively an extension to JavaScript, which uses JavaScript, but it packages it up in an accessible way for, as it says here, artists, designers, educators, beginners, and it allows us to very quickly start to make things happen with code. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. It's open source, as it says, which is very important. And so, without going into too much detail about how libraries work and what libraries are and what JavaScript is and isn't, we're just going to stay within the actual environment itself. And what they've done is they've created you an editor that you can use. So we don't have to worry about creating our files from scratch and worrying about how we implement the files, how we get the files working. We can just concentrate on understanding how the code works itself. And if, for example, you wanted to take that further down the line, then yeah, that's all entirely possible. For now, we're going to make this, say, as accessible as we possibly can. So really, the editor is the place we're going to be working. So we'll just dip into that. So in here is the coding environment. And in the first instance, what you're going to need to do is sign up. Okay, so over here you can see I'm already signed in. So I'm just going to log out a second. So you can sign up. I'm all ready to log in. I'll log in and that's me. So I now have an account, and that's important because you're going to want to be able to save your files. And if you see here, I can open all my saved files. Over here is the actual coding environment, which we'll come to in a second. And over here, I can give my files a name, temp intro, for example. So now that will be saved. And over here, which we're going to be exploring in great detail, is where we actually put the code. So I'm just going to pop a bit of code in here just to draw a rectangle quickly. And you'll see that when I've drawn the rectangle, when I hit the button over here, it's going to draw that rectangle on a background on a thing called the canvas. Okay, so this is effectively the web page up and running. So we're going to be using this coding environment over here to create content to appear over here on our web page, and we can adjust that backwards and forwards. We can change the size of our content easily enough by changing the values over here, which are pixel values. So everything here is being measured in pixels. So it's 600 pixels by 400 pixels. These things called functions, again, you don't have to get yourself overly concerned about those at the moment. As a rough guide, everything we do that we only ever need to do once, we can put inside the setup. So all the things that happen when the website loads and sets up, believe it or not, we can put in here. So we only want to set the size of the canvas once, and away we go. Over here, inside drawer, this is actually happening on a loop, which is very important because you've got to remember that we're going to be creating animations, etc., etc. So we want to constantly update our code as we're going along. So inside Draw, as you will soon see, everything is happening over and over again. It's actually happening 60 times a second over here. So that's a basic introduction to using the editor. From here, we're going to now move on and start to think about actually creating the code that we're going to need.